Let's talk about incest. First off, if you happen to not know, incest is when you have sex with a brother or sister, and culture regards it as icky. Why? Because if you have babies in incest, they tend to turn out really, really weird. Back in the day, if you had babies that looked really weird, we thought it was because it was the devil cursing you, saying, hey, you can't do that. You did something wrong, so we're passing your sins onto your babies. And if you have incest, then, your babies look weird. So, yeah, that's evil. Of course, now we know that's because our genetic codes are so similar with our siblings, and it just doesn't jive together. So now we know that it's because of our genes and not because of the devil trying to curse us. Here's the big question, though. If two consenting adults want to get into incestuous sex, like they want to have sex with their brother or sister, is that wrong? If they don't have children, mind you? Remember, the big reason why we don't like incestuous sex is because it has really, really weird children. So if they don't have children, is it a problem? Right off the bat, I want to say yes, because I personally am a huge supporter of the idea of civil liberties. I like the idea that you can do whatever you want, so long as you're not hurting anybody. And that's the key point, as long as you're not hurting anybody. Because some people say, oh, well, what about rape, or murder, or theft, or whatever? Those are hurting people, so you can't do those. But, say, having gay sex or getting into gay marriage, that doesn't hurt anybody at all. So, even if you don't like it, I don't see why it should be illegal. And in the same way, I want to say the same thing about incestuous sex. It's not hurting anybody, right? But then as I thought about it more, I had to ask, what exactly is consent? Consent means that you want to do it, but how do you know when you want to do it? And this is the really, really tricky thing, because people are going to call me a fascist or whatever, and I'm not a fascist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm like the opposite of a fascist. But it's a well-known fact that people tend to be raised in the culture that they're brought up in. You tend to think the way that your culture tells you to think. For example, we had this deal with French Islamic women wearing turbans or burqas, the thing on their face. They were wearing those in public. Some people didn't like them, so I believe they made them illegal. Which, on the bat, I want to say, no, that's wrong. People should be able to do whatever they want. Let's say that you're a woman of Arabic descent, but you weren't brought up in that Islamic culture, and you weren't taught to want to wear that type of thing. And someone just said, hey, do you want to wear it now? You're probably going to say no, because it's like, why would I wear this thing over my face? These women aren't going to want to wear this thing over their face. They're probably going to wear like, a short skirt and a tank top. Or if you went to one of these Islamic women and said, hey, do you want to wear this short skirt and tank top? They're going to say, no, I want to wear my burqa and everything. That's where it's at. Yeah. Burqa. So in a way, to say that one woman wants to wear the skirt and tank top and the other woman wants to wear the burqa, I think that that's kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't really work for me. So in this case, to say that one woman wants to wear the short skirt and tank top and the other woman wants to wear the burqa, it's kind of weird. Like, how can you really say? Keep in mind that I'm not saying this applies to women specifically. I'm not saying, oh, those women, they don't know what they want. This applies to everybody. And of course, a woman could know what they want. Like, for example, they could be brought up in a more liberal culture, and then they're exposed to this Islamic culture, and they say, hey, I want to be a part of that, so they start wearing those clothes. But, for the most part, if you're just raised in the culture, and you want what's in the culture, it's like, no duh, of course they're going to want it. So if you live in a culture where all these women are wearing burqas, and you make wearing burqas in public illegal, presumably they're not going to wear them anymore. Either that, or they're not going to go out in public. So are you infringing on their rights? In a way, yeah, but then in a way, you're adjusting the culture so that wearing burqas is something that doesn't happen anymore. So then if you make wearing burqas illegal again in 20 years, like, sure, they could, but they don't want to. Is that still consent, or has their consent been intruded upon? Are they still consensually saying, I don't want to wear it now? Another huge problem is, can store owners say that they don't want to serve or hire black people? When slavery was first abolished and you had a ton of new black people in the job market, this was a huge problem. A lot of people wouldn't hire black people. So what's the solution? You stop racism in the hiring process. Nowadays, you can't say, I don't want to hire someone because they're black. Now, can you say that? If it's a private business, ultimately, I kind of want to grind my teeth at it like, I don't know. At first, it makes perfect sense, though, because you lived in a culture where everybody was being racist and judging. Black people didn't have a chance. So you adjust the law so that people have to give them a chance. then later on, if you remove that rule and say, okay, you can do what you want. I mean, nowadays, if I go to McDonald's and I see a sign that says no black people allowed, I'm probably not going to go there. And so will the majority of people. But 100 years ago, that might not have been the case. Our culture's been adjusted because you weren't allowed to say that. So in the end, how do I feel about people having consensual, incestuous sex? I guess that it's not particularly a bad thing. Once again, if people want to do it, I guess they can. I just want people to realize that consent isn't necessarily drawn from what you want, because often what you want is what your culture has told you to want, as is obvious from people conforming to their culture, and that's what the majority of people do. In this case, I guess what I'm ideally saying is you continue laws against incest for now, so that you got this mentality out of the South that, yeah, have sex with your cousin, but then after a while, once that mentality is gone, you can legalize it again. And then if people want to, then you know they can. But then if people want to, you know that it's not just because their culture has put it in their mind to do it. You know that they really want to do it. The problem is, I don't know how you would do that. It would be really messy, and I don't know anything about implementing laws, so I don't know how that would work out. I want to hear your thoughts. Comment. How do you think this will work? Do you think it could work? Do you think it should work? Am I an evil, horrible dictator fascist who's going to destroy America? Or what? What's going on? Also, how do you like my new background? It's a bookshelf, so I look smart and stuff. I can talk about stuff, and then you're like, oh, he knows what he's talking about. He's really smart, because he's read books about grass, and deserts, and senior Girl Scouts. Yeah, I read all the books about senior Girl Scouts. I don't know what that is, though. Is that like when the Girl Scouts are really stupid and they never graduate until they're senior citizens? I'm stupid!